So in this video we'll learn how to deploy your MapReduce on e e AWS EWR and how to check the output files. So first of all, I assume that you are registered on AWS Educate, and from AWS Educate you can go to the third party website, and from there you can log into your AWS console. Once you are in AWS console, the first step is to create a key which you can go and do via key management. So I have already created keys. Right now I am not able to see that here, but I can. It will be required while creating an EMR cluster, and I'll select it there. So next step is to create an S3 bucket. So you have to go to S3, create an bucket. I have already created a bucket here. Once you are inside the bucket, you can create folders. You can create a different folder for input and different folder for output. No need to create a output folder. AWS it will create output folder itself, and you can put your jars in one of the folders. So I have already created the input folder, and the dblp xml is already loaded. So once the xml file is loaded and once your jar file is loaded, what the jar file you have to bundle only with the required libraries. No need to bundle your Hadoop related libraries, but other third-party libraries. I have used string utils, so in my jar you can see there is the size is very less. Other than that, let's go to the EMR service. Here I have already one cluster ready, but I will still show how you can create a cluster. We have to go to cluster, click on create cluster, select a name for your cluster, and AWS will by default create some S3 bucket and allocate it to logging. In next step, you have to select the EMR configuration. I have selected the default configuration. Here you can customize the number of nodes you want to process your MapReduce job. I have selected 3, and here you have the choice to select different EC2 components, and you can go to AWS EMR pricing to look at the EC2 components and their prices. Once you select the component, here is the part where you have to select the key. I had already created a key which I am going to select it here, and in next step you give command to create a cluster. So since I already had a cluster up and running, I will terminate this one and we'll go to the already running cluster. So even though the name is same here, internally each cluster has its own ID, and that's why there is no clash. So if you go and observe, once your cluster is up and running, the core, the master process and the slave, they will show that they are running. And you can go to hardware, and here also you can go to the EC2 components, and you can check whether they are running or not. And again coming back to, so these are the two slave EC2 instances. and and okay, so as you can see, this is the main EC2 instance where it will orchestrate the slaves, and this is the main tab where you will add your processes. So as you can see, I had already executed few jobs. One of them had failed, and here you can track all the job related information. So here what you have to do is click on add step, select the jar. So as we had created this bucket, we'll go here, select the jar file, and then you have to pass the required parameters. So required parameters in our case is the main class name, the path for input file where the dblp xml is stored, and some new output folder which doesn't exist. So we'll give name op12345, and then next step is to click on add. Once the task is added, it will go in pending state, and then in some time it will go to running states, and in some time you will start seeing the logs. So if we click on logs right now, it will show pending. One problem I have observed with AWS EMR is that this screen doesn't refresh at regular intervals. So in once in a while you have to go to clusters, come back to my clusters, and then come back here, or wait for some time. So what we'll do is we'll wait for some time. Okay, so now we are back, and the cluster status has changed to running, and the task is also in running states. So while it's in running state, what we can do is we can check the system log. If task fails with some error, it will show up here. So as you can see, the map reduce job has started and it has reached 5%. Another observation I have done is this log is again not refreshed at regular interval, and it may take some time to show the complete logs, but uh, so we have to wait until the task completes. You cannot just depend on the log to keep track of the task. Sometimes the log gets stuck at some particular point. So as we can see, the process is complete, but if you go and see the log will still show up. Okay, the log has been refreshed. So you can go and check the logs, and log will show all the information about the data data processing, how many bytes were read, how many bytes were read from the file system, from the HDFS file system, and from the S3 bucket, how many jobs were executed, how many map tasks were executed, how many reduced tasks were executed. Since the number of tasks reduced tasks are 3, we can expect around 3 output files for this particular job. And here you can see the number of records it has processed and the number of records it has produced. So this is the final output. So we should see 98 records in our 3 files, and some other information is also here related to EC2 instance monitoring. So going back to our job, so we had given this path as output. So we'll go to the S3 bucket again, and we'll go to that particular path and check whether the files are ready. So as you can see, the output folder is created. If you don't see output folder here, what you can do is refresh, and it should show up. As you can see, there are 3 files, and let's download them and have a look. So you cannot download all the files simultaneously, so you have to select them one by one and click on download. So as you can see, this is the first file, it contains 22 records. This is the second file, it contains 28, so total 50. And the last file should have 48 records. So the record format is the professor name and the total publications by that particular professor, and the other format is if other format is the relation between a professor and uh, with another professor and the number of publications they have done together. Coming back to EMR, you can see, so I have this another bucket. This bucket was the one which was created by EMR cluster, and all logs which we were observing can be found here. So how to check the particular logs here? So what we have to do is you have to compare the EMR instance with this particular folder. So here if you go and check, the EMR ID ends with KUSN. So in this case, this is the particular cluster we are interested in. Since we executed Hadoop MapReduce, we'll go in Hadoop MapReduce. Here you can see the history, the jobs executed and the related files. And to see the logs related to a task, you have to go in steps, and again in steps you have to track the particular step which was executed. So it was KCO, ending with KCO, so we should have something KCO. So the logs which we are reading, they are stored here. Yeah, that so this was the demo for EMR, executing a map reduce job on AWS EMR.